Good morning, people. A slightly shorter than normal offering this week because I had loads of disturbances and had to go out and do loads of jobs elsewhere. And finally on Friday, tragedy strikes on the 2CV engine. It's not terminal, but it's given me a few little jobs to do to sort the engine out. Firstly, I was just offering the exhaust up and noticed that the manifold was loose, and when I wobbled the manifold I noticed that the exhaust manifold balance pipe between the two exhaust headers was broken off, and then I tried to remove the exhaust manifold nuts, and due to a lack of patience on my part, there's nobody else to be blamed but me, I sheared one of the studs off. I got the manifold off, got the alternator off, I had to strip half the engine, as you will see, and it's left me with three problems really. First of all, removing the sheared off stud, which I can do because I've got the machinery, that's not a problem. I should just set it up, make a drill guide, drill it down the centre, and then just keep drilling it till it falls to pieces. Second problem is I have to braze the pipe back together again, which means probably putting a piece of pipe into the manifold and then another piece of pipe into the broken pipe, leaving a gap between them and brazing two joints, which will have to be done with the manifold bolted onto the engine to get the orientation right. The third problem is that when I took the cylinder head off in order to remove this stud, I found a piece of aluminium sheet Jubilee clipped to one of the push rod tubes, because obviously one of the push rod tubes has a hole in it. So I'm now looking at three separate repairs where I was at the point where I was about to try and start the engine, and had that all gone straight forward, I would have had a time to do that yesterday. My feeling is that the exhaust we had rigged on it before, which did get knocked a few times, has actually been the cause of the manifold to break. But when I look at the price for replacement parts for 2CVs, it's truly ludicrous. There's only one place really that has reasonable prices at all, and that's 2CV City in Bradford. They're very good. But when you look at things like the oil pipe, there's an oil pipe which plugs into the crankcase and feeds the rockers in either cylinder head. It's a tiny steel pipe, capillary pipe, which feeds oil to each cylinder head rockers. It's £44 for a replacement one. Well, if you look at other 2CV shops, it's £66. What I've decided to do is get the engine running again and make sure everything's okay with the engine. Now the engine ran very well indeed, it was a good engine, I'd selected it as such, but I'd obviously missed the fact that the pushrod tube was bodged up. But that's not bad, that can be repaired. I can even buy a new pushrod tube for £16, but I want to make sure that I'm not throwing good money after bad before I start spending money on it. In the meantime, I've put out an all points bulletin for a scrap 2CV engine or car, although the chances of that happening nowadays are very slim, but you never know, you never know. So here you go, folks, this is this week's offering. Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe, comment, you know, weep for me having to do all these bloody repairs where I thought I was almost on the verge of finishing, but that's life. See you all later. Bye for now. Hello, people. I've been a bad boy again. It's Tuesday lunchtime already and I still haven't shot any video. But what's this? Well, it's the control panel of a Chinese vibro plate sports exerciser, which is what my wife has asked for to do some exercise. She said to me, I want a cross trainer and a vibro plate. And I said, how much are they going to cost? And she said, well, a cross trainer's about 300 or 400 quid, and a vibro plate's about 300 quid. So I asked around, and I put an advert on Facebook, and I bought a vibro plate, of which that over there is the control panel, a cross trainer, and I got a treadmill thrown in for a tenner. How does that go with you? I think it was a bargain. Now the cross trainer's perfect. I've checked it all out, put it back together. It was all in pieces when I got it. Put it back together, it works fine. The vibro plate has got a fault on the control panel. It isn't a fault I think I can do anything with. The buttons are worn out. It needs a new set of buttons. So I shall be ordering up the buttons, and we'll put those on, and I'll pop that in the video when they come. But it does work. It just when you press the button, it doesn't always change the program. You have to press it several times, and basically the buttons are worn out. But there you go. It's all this is cheap Chinese equipment. But look at it. You know, that's what you get. Right, tractor. Yesterday, before I went to pick all this stuff up in Scarborough, I got the grass deck on. It's not on permanently. It's going to have to come off to get de-rusted and freed, all the wheels freed off, etc, etc, etc. But basically, I want it in position so I can put the belts on it and put the belts on the drive, and see how much movement I need to make that, turn this pulley down here into a jockey pulley. So that's gone forward a little bit as well. So we're progressing, but at the moment I'm just doing these so that I can take them to my house and get them out of my workshop. So there you go. Right, catch you all later. Here we are again. It's Thursday already, and I've hardly shot any footage at all this week. I've been getting lots of disturbances and having to rush off out and help people with other jobs. I finished the wobble-utator, the vibrating plate gym equipment, and if you ever see one of those, grab it, because inside there is a nice length of 1-inch shafting. There's 2 mounted plumber block bearings. There's all sorts of useful bits in it. There's a DC motor, big heavy duty DC motor, a controller, speed controller for it, which gives you all sorts of, I think it's 20 different speeds, and they get dumped on scrap heaps for nothing. So it's well worth grabbing hold of one and stripping it for parts if you see it. But that one's, I rebuilt the bearing, bolted it all back together, and the clunking had gone, partly caused by the motor being loose, I think. Anyway, back to what we were doing. We're on with this. What I'm going to do next is take the plate off and the starter off, put the belts back on, and start to assemble it, right, so that I can get the belt runs set and get the belt for the grass deck, which is now on properly, connected up, and see how much movement we need to operate the what was the directional pulley, to operate that as a jockey pulley as well, and see how we go. So I'm going to crack on with that, and when I've done something, he said, hoping that he gets something done before he gets disturbed again, I'll bring you back. Bye for now. Well folks, it's a few minutes to 4 and I've been nobbled yet again to go and do another job. My brother's just installing a SE, oil-fired cooker and central heating boiler, and he's just wired it up and he's not happy that it's working right. Well, I think it is. So the oil man's coming tomorrow to finish the installation and commission it, so he'll sort it out, and if he needs me, he can come down for me. Right, we've got the cover off, we've got the belts on. We need very little movement here to tension the belts. That's literally it. So that's easily doable. But what I'm doing at the moment, before I do anything to tighten the belts up, I've got to fit this tube onto the end of that rod with a surreptitious weld, and then put a couple of brackets on there to hold it, because this is the torque reaction bar that stops the engine wobbling all over the place like that, and takes the load from the engine and just transfers it to the chassis, so that when it takes up drive, the engine doesn't move or pull against the rubber mountings on the engine mounts. If you understand all that, which is with a load of Irish really, wasn't it? But I think you can pick the bones out of it. Right, so I'm going to mark that, or should I say I've marked that there. I'm going to cut that off, weld that tube onto it, and then we've got these makings of a anti-torque bar back on. I've put all this back. I cut that piece out there so I can get the rocker cover off. I might have gone a bit too much with it, but never mind. I put that plate back on. I've got the little jockey pulley there back on that just does the belt run, and that might need adjusting a bit, but I won't know that until I've got the engine running. So now I've got that bracket back on and I'm doing this. Right, there we go. I'll bring you back again, but it might be tomorrow. See you later, peeps. Well, here we are again, folks. It's going up for 5 o'clock on Thursday, and I've got a bit done. There's the tube welded on in the right position. So next we need to make a couple of brackets to weld onto here, just so that I can put a bolt. There's rubber bushes that go through here, and I can put a bolt through, and that will just absorb the shock of the belts kicking and stop the engine tearing at its engine mountings. A torque reaction bar. I took the old one off, and I've made the old one into a new one, but it'll have a rubber bush at both ends this time, so it'll be a bit better. But that's it for today. I've got to pack in now, and let's hope I get an undisturbed day tomorrow, although the chances of that just at the moment are pretty slim. I did get some good news yesterday. My coronavirus test came back negative. So there you go. So I had it and now I haven't. So that's it. But to be honest, I don't feel any different at all. You know, it doesn't seem to. They do say that 70% of people don't get any symptoms. So there you go. So we're limping slowly towards a point where we could stick a temporary exhaust on, stick the old exhaust back on that I had on the thing before, and start the engine. Put some petrol in it and see if the engine will start. And then we can sort of do a drive belt test. We can jack the back end up and see if it's dry, see if the clutch. I mean, it worked before and the engine's in the same position, so I can't see it won't. But we can have a mock-up. I think that's what I ought to go for next week, to achieve next week. Get the engine running, even with temporary exhausts on. Get the engine running and check the drives work. Get this finished. Get some sort of lever device made for there so it can be operated from the seated position to put the grass deck into gear, and then get the engine running and test all the drives before I put all these boxes back on, because I need to know that that isn't going to slip off the jockey pulley. That maybe needs a jockey pulley on there with a washer on it or a side on it, just to stop the belt jumping off like that. But we shall see. Anyway, I shall crack on. I shall go home now, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye for now. Progress, people, progress. As you can see, I've pushed it back into the welding shop again. And there we have it, ready for a couple of tacks. I've got all the clearances set. I've got some washers in here that I can remove to move that over slightly just to clear the rocker cover. I could also dint the rocker cover slightly there, but there is clearance. Plenty of clearance under there, if you can see. So we're ready to put a tack on. So let's put a tack on and see how it goes. I'm back. Friday, 1:30. After an enormous amount of get stuck in, we have a torque reaction bar nicely bolted on there, clearing all around, and more or less in the place it was in the original incarnation of the this installation. We have a bracket which was the one that was on before to keep the belt from slipping off that jockey pulley. We have the starter, top of the starter bracket rounded off and made neat, a proper nut put on there, and we have the pulley and everything lining up. So we're about ready to do some casing up, but I'm just wondering if I can't bodge an exhaust onto this thing and see if I can get the engine running. And if I can get the engine running, I can just check on the belt drives and make sure everything is Janek before I box it all up again with the panels and the footrest panel and everything. So I might do that next, see if I can get the wiring done, reconnected, the exhaust back on, and just see if I can get it to crack up. I shall do that. Right people, I'll bring you back if it runs. Bye for now. Oh dear, it has all gone tits up. As I was fitting the exhaust, I noticed that this manifold here was loose. Can you see that moving? And the reason it's loose is because there's a sheared off stud, right, and it won't tighten, and I am going to have to take this cowl off and see if I can get that out. So I've begun to unscrew this rubber shield to get it out of the way so I can get some heat in there, and it looks like I'm going to take the alternator off and take all the bits off and mess about, so it looks like the start for today is out. I think the universe is trying to tell me that I shouldn't be doing this job, but nevertheless I'm going to forge on until it's done. So there we go people, if anything wonderfully successful happens, I'll bring you back. See you later. It just gets worse, doesn't it? It just gets worse. Look at that, I'd never noticed that. Of course, it can be welded up. It can be welded up, and it will be welded up, but what a bugger. Bye for now. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. It gets worse and worse and worse. Right, I've got the cylinder head off. With the sheared off stud in it. There was about 1/4 of an inch sticking out of the surface here. So I heated it up, tapped it, heated it up, tapped it, got the mole grips on it, got it to turn about 1/4 of a turn either way, and then it locked up, which means that the thread is absolutely full of oxide and it's just jamming up against the thread. Couldn't get it to turn anymore. What I should have done was welded a nut onto it, but I didn't, and the result is now that it's sheared off again just below the surface, and I'm going to have to set this up in a vise, get this surface here perpendicular to the drill stand, and then very carefully put a milling cutter into there to mill it flat, find a centre, and then drill it out. So that's a job for Monday. And just to add insult to injury, the push rod tube has had a hole in it and has had a bit of aluminium bodged over it with 2 Jubilee clips, which I didn't know about. Right, this was an engine picked at random from my 2CV stores, which used to contain 4 complete cars and another 4 cars in bits. So at one time I had at least 8 and probably 9 of these engines, plus stacks of spare parts, and unfortunately I sold the lot. What I should have done, of course, was kept a spare engine for this. So now I've got to look at making a decent repair here. If my patience will stand it, but we've gone this far, and this isn't beyond me. It's just a real pisser that it's happened. So it's the end of the week, chaps. I'm sorry to leave you on a downer, but believe you me, I'm on a downer at the moment, and I'm looking well forward to the weekend and not looking forward to coming back Monday. But come back Monday I shall, and crack on with it. See what we can do, see what we can make of it. I'm sure we can make it run. I might not even bother with that repair. It's not been leaking. I might just put it straight back on and put the repair back on with some hematite on it. It's obviously not been leaking, so there you go. Right, chaps, I can't honestly ask you to subscribe after this week. I really can't, but please subscribe, like, send me a comment, give me some encouragement. By God, I need some encouragement with this. And if anybody out there's got a 2CV engine laying in a shed doing nothing, cash waiting. Okay, peeps, see you later. Bye for now.